Hashem. We're studying the Manishtana. We're up to the fourth question of the Manishtana. Arya, you have it? No, about reclining. Shebekol halelot. Misubin. Then on all other nights, we eat and also drink, whether we're sitting upright or whether we're reclining. Ben yoshvinu vein misubin. But on this night, kulanu misubin. On this night, everything is reclining, even though it's not accurate that everything is reclining. It doesn't mean the majority is reclining, because a student before his teacher is not supposed to recline, and also women, generally speaking, are not required to recline, and so therefore, but it means, but anyway, most of us are all reclining. So that's the fourth question of the Manishtana. So why does it say, on this night, we eat? Why does it emphasize the eating? And so, but also not mentioning the drinking. There's also an obligation to drink the 4 cups. So that's why some texts have we drink and we eat and we drink. Okay. Why don't we say that the whole year... Hello, Noam, how you doing? Of course he is. We're up to the fourth question of the Manishtana, which says, on all other nights we eat while sitting and reclining, but here on this night, we're only reclining. So here's an explanation of this question. From the here, Aiden, come join us. Take a Haggadah. Now, we're supposed to recline on Seder night. You know that?
Yeah.
Why do we recline?
Yeah.
That was the way they ate. Nowadays, the way we eat is by not reclining. If you would be sitting there reclining they used to sit on couches when they ate, but nowadays, but when there was a fancy meal, they would be on a couch, apparently. I don't know exactly. It's true. I never actually of reclining on a couch.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. The Rashbat explains that why on this night are we obligated to eat the matzah while reclining, which is like an expression of freedom. And you don't have the right to say, listen, the Manishtana, where do you have your Seder, Aiden?
This year? I don't know yet, actually. It's probably this year.
Well, we're not here. I'm going to be away. We go away. We're going to go to Florida. There's a few Jews there. We'll probably find, yeah. But but God willing, our matzah should come either at the end of this week or beginning of next week, and have matzah for everybody. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be here? New York, okay, with the Rebbe. Okay, so there are some who say that the Haggadah of the Mishnah Halachos, he explains that in Exodus they reclined even without eating. So that's one of the questions. I mean, the whole idea is basically what this is about is on Seder night, we try not just to talk about it, but recreate the experience, to recreate that experience. The fourth question, on all other nights, we sit regularly and we also recline, but on this night, everybody reclines. The question is, the Rambam says, the question is, the real question is that this question does not appear in the Talmud. When the Talmud lists the 4 questions, it doesn't list this question.
What is this?
The Talmud has the questions. It has, on all other nights we eat roasted and not roasted. Here, let me get to the actual question. Here, it says here, we did it the other day. It says, hold on. Here, where is it exactly? We had this yesterday. Okay. The Talmud has the first question is matzah, the second question is maror, the third question is about roasted versus not roasted. That on all other nights, on all other nights we eat roasted and not roasted. Tonight everything is roasted. And then the fourth question is about the dipping. But this question about reclining is not in there. So that's a question. So why did they change it? So we have a few answers to this question. I have 5 answers to this question. So I have actually 5 answers to this question. First answer comes from the Vilna Gaon. We were just discussing. The Vilna Gaon says that we're still studying the Manishtana, Jonathan. He says that the recline. Why would you think reclining is not mentioned in the Mishnah, Eden? Why would you think? The question about reclining is not mentioned in the Talmud. Why would you think?
Maybe because I don't know. Maybe it's too outdated.
Yeah, what's your theory? Right. So that's what the no. The Vilna Gaon says the reason why they didn't here take a Haggadah as we're studying the Haggadah. The Vilna Gaon says because in the time of the temple, when the Talmud, or soon after the temple was destroyed, when the Mishnah was written, everybody was reclining, so it wouldn't have been an unusual thing to say, why are we all reclining? But nowadays, nobody reclines when we eat. I mean, it's considered bad manners. Potentially, you'll get your clothes dirty. I mean, can you imagine if tonight you came home for dinner and when your mother served you your dinner, you said, okay, let me eat my food while I'm lying on the couch? Your mama probably might not be so happy. Your mama, Aiden, will probably whip you. She's a wrestling mom. She says she wears a t-shirt, wrestling mom. She doesn't take any, and she won't physically attack you, God forbid, but she's a tough lady. She's not going to take you eating the soup on the couch, right? So that this is an unusual thing. Okay, another answer is, at the time in the Mishnah, the reclining was so obviously an act of redemption, an act of freedom, that it wasn't even worth asking about because everybody recognized what it was. But nowadays, we're not familiar with it. So that's similar. Okay. Anyway, basically, these are the basic questions. One more answer. One more answer is they wanted to make sure we got to 4, so they had to find something. So they had 3, but in the time of the Talmud, they talked about the roasted. But nowadays, we specifically, it says in the Talmud, tonight everything is roasted. But nowadays, we don't eat anything roasted. That's our practice, that we don't eat any meat roasted on Seder night because we don't want it to reflect the Korban Pesach. So, what? Because what happened was, here's what happened. After the Talmud was destroyed, after the temple was destroyed, there were some people who tried to continue doing this practice of the Paschal Lamb, of roasting it in their own private areas. There was a famous man named, I think his name was Tudrus in Rome, and he was also doing the Paschal Lamb just on his own. And the rabbi said, no, you can't do it. So we don't want people to pretend that they're eating the Paschal Lamb, because that could make it like sacred. So we specifically don't do that. Rest of the Seder, we pretend. Like we pretend we left Egypt, we walk around with matzah, etc. But what? They don't want to pretend, right? Exactly. Because that would be like you're sanctifying it. That would be like you're sanctifying the meat, and you can't sanctify meat nowadays outside of the temple. So now there's another question. One more question, and then we'll be done with 4 questions. The next question is, how come we didn't choose? There are other things you could have included in the 4 questions. What else might you have included in the Manashtana? What other things? Well, you might have asked about the 4 cups of wine. You might have asked about the charoset. So why aren't those included? So the Barbanel writes, because people when they're slaves also drink a lot. So therefore, it's not an indication of our freedom. And so therefore it doesn't demonstrate our freedom. Okay, I mean, I think it's more interesting a question than the answer. All right. Here's one way to think about it, and then we'll move on. It says there are 3 types of changes on Seder night. There's additions, there's deletions, and there's exchanges. There's things we add. And for each of these things, we ask one question. What do we add? We add an extra dipping. So, and that's why we ask, and what about what's defective? What's missing? Aryeh, what's missing on Seder night? That we ask, why is this missing? Chametz, very good, Jonathan. And what do we exchange? What's it? No, but we ask, why is there no chametz on Seder night? So that we know why, but that's a question. So we ask about something added, that's an extra dipping. We know about something missing, that's the chametz. And what's exchanged? What do we switch? Something we normally do for something else. No, that's the maror. We switch the regular vegetables for the maror. And so those are the 3 questions. And so therefore, they didn't ask other questions because they already asked those types of questions. I mean, that's what they are, Okay. What about matzot? What about other mitzvos? Why don't we ask on other nights? How come we only ask on Seder night? How come we don't ask on, why don't we ask questions on Sukkot? When we come into the Sukkah, why don't we say on all other nights we eat in our home? But on Sukkot, we eat in a Sukkah. It says, it says you are commanded to talk to your children about it. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, that's one of the, okay, fine. Before we go, let me just tell you a couple of questions, customs that there are said about the Manashtana. So the Bnei Yissaschar, who's the Bnei Yissaschar? He is the great nephew of the Rebbe Elimelech. So Bnei Yissaschar writes about a custom. What? What? You didn't know that? His name was Tzvi Elimelech. The story about him was his mother was trying to get pregnant, and she went to Rebbe Elimelech, and she said for bracha to get pregnant. Rebbe Elimelech said, "You'll have a baby, and you should call him Elimelech." But she didn't want to call him Elimelech because he was still alive, so she called him Tzvi Elimelech. She called the baby Tzvi Elimelech. And so Rebbe Elimelech said, if you would have called him Elimelech, he would have been as great as me. But now that you called him Tzvi Elimelech, he's only going to be half as great as me. Yeah, that's the story. Anyway, so the Bnei Yissaschar says that the custom is to light one extra candle, a special candle on the Seder night, and we call it the Manashtana licht, the Manashtana light, Ner Manashtana. So there's a special candle to put on the table. That's one custom from the Bnei Yissaschar. I guess we should make it our custom because we follow Rebbe Melech to light one extra candle and put in the middle of the Seder, and that's called the Manishtana Licht. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a picture of that. I can share with the people having the Seder with. What's the purpose of it? The purpose of it is so they explain what's the purpose for this. He says the son asked the question, he puts the Laila in the feminine. And this night is different, that the son, Ben, is in the masculine, Ben Shoel. So he says, Manashana Laila Zeh. So because we switch back from the masculine to the feminine, it says Manashana Laila Zeh, which is the masculine, Mikol Alelos, which is the feminine. So therefore, why are we switching back and forth? And so therefore, that this night is a night like the day. And as a result of it, we make a candle that should illuminate the night like the day. I don't know, that's what he says.
Remember that story of the 4 sages?
Yeah, well, that's in the middle of the Haggadah. We'll get to that. But that was at night, yeah. But we don't know. We said it never said that was on Seder night. So anyway, that's the custom of the Bnei Yissaschar, who was the nephew of Rebbe Melech. So maybe you should suggest it at your Seder table that you want to put a candle right in the middle of the table and call it the Manashtana light. The Haggadah, the Minhag Baghdad, he brought a custom that after they say Halach Ma'anya, they would put a person would stand, and he would be carrying the afikomen, and the father would say, "Where'd you come from?" And he said, "I just came in from Egypt." And they'd say, "Where are you going?" He'd say, "Jerusalem." "And where's your food for the road?" He says, "It's on my back." And then they would ask the Manashana. So they go through this play, this drama before it. Anybody want to suggest that? You have a person get up and say, "Where'd you come from?"
Egypt.
"Where are you going?" "Okay, and what are you going to eat on the way?" Exactly. Very good. This is the Baghdadi custom. This is the Iraqi custom. I think they do something similar. I think my daughter-in-law's family is Moroccan. I think they do something similarly. My other daughter-in-law is Syrian. I have to ask her if they do something differently, but we'll find out. The Midrash Aviv brings another custom that before, so that there's another custom that before the child asks the Manashtana, he claps his hands together. He starts clapping, and afterwards he begins to ask. So he says that he heard this, and he heard about this practice from the Belzer Rebbe, that the Kohen Gadol had bells, golden bells, on the corners of his garment, so that everybody should hear him coming. And so therefore, on this night that we're going, it's basically on this night we're entering into the Holy of Holies, we clap our hands to tell everybody we're coming into holiness. That's another custom. Before you do the Manashtana, you have to clap it up. What do you think of that? It's a good one. 3 customs. Okay, hold on. I'm just going to take a picture of this one. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, beautiful. Now we know an extra custom. We can always introduce a new custom, and people say, "Where's it from?" You say it's from Rebbe Melech. All right, now let's go to the answer of the Manashtana. What was the answer of the Manashtana? Who wants to read that? Noam, you read the answer of the Manashtana. No, before that. Begins with the words Avadim Ayinu. Avadim Ayinu. Go one more page. Oh no, after that. One more page before. Right there.
Avadim Ayinu.
Yeah, this is the answer to the Manishtana.
Avadim Ayinu.
The reason why we make all these changes on Seder night is because, go on.
Avadim Ayinu Lefaro Mitzrayim. V'yotzienu Hashem Elokeinu Misham. V'yad Chazakah. V'zroa Netuya.
Right. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and God let us out from there, Biyad Chazakah, with a strong arm, the strong hand, Ubizro Netuya, with an outstretched arm. Okay, go on. Keep reading.
Ve'ilu lo hotzi Hakadosh Baruch Hu es avotenu miMitzrayim. Harianu uvanenu uvnei vanenu meshubadim hayinu lefaro v'Mitzrayim.
Right. And if our God did not lead us out of Egypt, then we and our children and our grandchildren would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. What does that mean? Do you really think that makes sense, Aiden? If God didn't lead us out of Egypt, we'd still be slaves? Right. Right. So what? That's also true. But what do you, I mean, to this day, it's a long time. Those Egyptians are not even the same Egyptians anymore. So the Ritva says that we were at the point where if Moshe didn't lead us out with God, obviously God with Moshe, then we would have assimilated right away. We would have assimilated and we would have been gone. We would have been Egyptians. You and I would be speaking Egyptian today. You would have been speaking Egyptian. And so that's why. That's what the Ritva says. That's a good question also. Another question is why does it say we would have been slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt? Why specifically to Pharaoh and in Egypt? So as opposed to we would have been slaves in Egypt, we would have been slaves to Pharaoh. Why specifically to Pharaoh in Egypt? What? Pharaoh represents hardship. Very nice. Let's see what it says here. Very good answer. I have here 5 answers. I have 5 answers to this question. 5 answers. And that's before we get to the other question. I have this special Haggadah that's made by the Mesivta Shas, and they have, for every single sentence in the Haggadah, they have like 30 questions. And each question they ask, they have like 10 answers. So what I suggest is you do not do this at your Seder, because if you have a Seder unless you're by yourself, everybody will get frustrated with you. So what you need to do is study it beforehand so that you can understand and appreciate it with depth. And then that way you don't impose yourself on the other people at the Seder, but you'll just have a richer understanding of it. Because the 99.9% of the people in the world, they have patience for like 20 minutes of discussion. But then it's very hard to compete with food. And there's food, everybody starts smelling like a chicken soup or a brisket or a potato kugel. And then next thing you know, the Seder, then you can't compete. Also, the Seder night is very late at night. And usually people are exhausted because sometimes they're with family, or so they're traveling, or they're working hard to prepare the Seder, and people are tired. So you have to really be prepared spiritually in order to get something out of it. Yes, they did. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Well, we have already 1 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I think
I do hear people. I hear people.
What?
I hear people on this, and maybe.
Yeah, we have a minion. I think we do. Hold on.
All right, always doing some work. That's all.
Oh yeah, we have a minion. I think Bear, is Mr. Dobson here? Okay, yeah, let's get started with Mincha. We'll call on John and Mr. Dobson. We'll have Mincha. We'll take up this question tomorrow about about yeah, why to Pharaoh in Egypt. To Pharaoh in Egypt. Okay, we'll stop here.